Wow. Okay. It looks like we're live. Let me just figure out a few more things, but just so people who are here, maybe watching, know that I'm doing the technical stuff. It's challenging for me, but you all can talk while I'm doing this if you like, just till I get it better organized.
Oh, Jerry seems to be gone. Hello, fellow Julie. You look amazing.
She is
You.
amazing.
Yeah, this is my first time being invited to a chat where we're several people. But I've been watching one of the Christmas get-togethers on Zoom. But I think it's a couple of years ago. But it was a lot of fun to see and watch what you all were doing.
Well, I love
So
your
I
outfit.
feel like I know
Hair
you a little bit.
is beautiful.
Thanks.
Fantastic, Julie. Welcome, welcome. I was hoping that you would join us because it's fun to have people from all around the world. It's fun for me. It would be very costly to get on a plane and go visit each of you. So this way is really great. So okay, I think we're connected on YouTube. I think if there are people out there watching, the chat box is open. I think actually this time I figured out how to see your messages. So if there's anybody watching currently on YouTube, please be kind enough to type a little message to me so I can see that I'm getting it. Um, yeah. Oh, this is annoying. Bear with me, all this technical stuff. I'm probably fretting over nothing, but I'm sure yeah, I'm sure y'all know how that goes. Let's go. I'm trying to rearrange different windows on my screen so that things aren't overlapping too much.
Mm.
I think I got it. Actually, my husband is here in the background. Do you see anybody watching yet, honey?
I see you on my.
Are there other people watching? Can you see that number? Yes, no? Okay, well, nobody's commenting. So I'm expecting more people to this fifth annual holiday gathering, but until they arrive,
Mm.
we can go around and introduce ourselves. So I'm Billie, I'm the ringleader of this channel, Show and Tell Knitting. And each of the people you see have been on my channel at one time or another. Um, they're all expert knitters. So why don't you take turns? Jerry, you go first, introducing yourself and just say where you're residing.
Okay, Jerry Sherman. I live in New York City in Greenwich Village, which to me is the best and only place to live. And I've just been a knitter forever, and um, the more complicated, the better. I never knit anything simple, and which means I'm constantly ripping out and reknitting, but that goes with the territory. And now, and then we can go around because I don't know the format of today's uh, session, but I am experiencing a very interesting problem with what I'm working on now, which is going to be um, a very pretty long um, vest, multicolors, multi yarns, and I've come upon an incredible, unexpected problem. But I've said enough. Let's hear from everybody else.
Jules, why don't you go?
Hi, I'm Jules, Uncle Scotty on Ravelry, and I write a blog called The Stitchcraft 60s, where I make things from the magazine Stitchcraft from the 1960s. So like this little top and this little twin set and some embroidered cushions and yeah, knitting and embroidery from mostly from the 60s, sometimes earlier things. Yeah, that's what I do.
And you're living,
Oh, I live in Bremen, Germany.
Germany, right. We had that conversation about the
The Kohlfahrt, yes, where you
The
walk
3
around in the field in the rain and
no.
the snow, and you eat kale from the fields, and you get really drunk, and then you go in a restaurant and eat more kale. It's a wonderful, wonderful holiday tradition.
No, not that. The story, the children's story about the 3 somebodies from Bremen.
Oh, the Bremen town musicians.
Yes.
Yes, the 4 animals who go off to find a better life and end up living in their own little house in the woods. Yeah.
Yeah. That, I mean, for me, that's the recollection I have from my childhood of Bremen, because what American kid knows from Bremen? No one.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. Thanks for coming back. How many times have you been here? 3 or 4?
I think this is the 3rd holiday get together.
Possibly.
Maybe the 2nd, maybe the 3rd. Yeah.
I think it's more than 2. So, well, welcome back. I know you've been here before. Julie.
Yes. This is my first time, and we chatted the first time in September this year. So
I'm glad you
quite
remember.
new. I live in Denmark, in Frederiksberg, near Copenhagen, and my passion is the 1940s, 30s knitwear. I'm mostly a creative knitter, so much not too much into math, but I'm doing a lot of different things with different colors and patterns, and yeah, I'm not so organized, but it's the creative process that inspires me a lot from that
You've been to
time.
some really interesting events since I first met you. All these vintage people dress up and go to fun venues, and they're girls in champagne glasses. And
Yes, that was the Frank Martini Great Gatsby event so that was the 1920s, celebrating the 1920s and partying like that. And that was when I got to wear my silver knitted cape over my sequined silver dress. So that was a really fun event. But they travel around. They've been to Germany too, I think, and in Europe they travel around and do parties for New Year's Eve, and yeah, with bands and the girls in a champagne glass, and so it's very festive.
really fun. A lot of the people who I've interviewed are like either reenactors or people who go to vintage events. I personally, in the coming year, will be in Paris for the 100th anniversary of the famous 1925 Paris Exposition Internationale des Arts Décoratifs et Industriels Modernes, which is the big event that put Art Deco on the map before it was even known as Art Deco. Some of you may know that that term wasn't coined until the 1960s. Anyway, people will be coming from all over the world.
Wow.
When is that exactly?
It's October 20th to the 25th, 2025, which spans my birthday next year. But you have to be a member of an Art Deco society from someplace in the world that belongs to the coalition of Art Deco societies. So people will be coming from Australia, from California, from probably Chicago, New York, certainly, London. I'm sure there are other places in Europe too. I think Brussels may have a chapter. So it'll be very interesting. And I'm sure, I mean, I attended the one that was in New York about over a decade ago. People came from all over the world too. And we went to all the different Art Deco venues and private homes and collectors and so forth. And we had lecturers, which I'm sure it's going to be a similar format in Paris. But I remember from when it was in New York, people came with unbelievable clothing, original 30s and 40s dresses and hats. Some of these women, they must have had like 5 pieces of luggage, because just their hats alone, they would have to
Yeah.
have had like hat boxes for each hat, or, something. And then they had the perfect shoe and the perfect handbag. I'm not going to be one of those. No, because we'll be doing a lot of walking, and I don't have a good vintage, comfortable walking shoe, so that's going to be out right away. But I'll have my berets in every color. They don't take up any room. I don't have to worry about hat boxes. And of course, I'll have my array of vintage knitwear. And luckily, it's in the fall when it will be sweater weather. So hopefully, I'll fit in. But I know there'll be some people like Julie who will be like maxed out. It's so good. It's fun. It's really fun. So I'm not sure why other people aren't here, but I guess I could start off by welcoming you as my guest with sweet treats.
Mm.
I assembled a little Limoges plate with some treats on it. My favorite local store, Jerry. By the way, Jerry lives walking distance from me, so she knows all about Trader Joe's.
Oh, yes.
They have stores
Mhm.
all across the United States, and they do a lot of seasonal things. Their products are just incredible. So this is a little apple pie, like a mini apple pie, and this is half of a pecan pie. Guess who ate the other half? And then they also do these beautiful pedophores. This is like totally seasonal stuff. They don't have it all year long. These are like
Mm.
little individual cakes. And when I should have sliced one open, it's like a 3-layer cake inside with icing, layer of icing inside. Unbelievably sweet and delicious and wonderful. So please enjoy one. And for people watching, know that you can run to your local Trader Joe's if you're in the States and get some of these treats. I also brought my tea. Excuse me, my throat gets dry when I talk a lot lately. Yes, Jerry, as we age, things change. That's something that's changing for me, my vocal cords. So this is the tea that I'm drinking, and this is also a Trader Joe's product. So it's winter wake up tea, and it's got cinnamon, orange peel, spicy ginger, and cloves. And it's a black tea. They don't have this all year long either. So I had my husband pick up a bunch of boxes because I really love it. And I'd like to be able to drink it all year long. Plus, I think it would make great iced tea in the summer. So that, and then I'll just show you the beautiful box because their packaging is just gorgeous. Here's the pecan pies, the little box they come in. And like the little designs on the edges, everything is just so charming and beautiful and delicious. They have people who test the products before they put them on the shelf. So they have like testers who specialize in different things, like, Italian food. They're going to have somebody who's really got a trained Italian palate who will taste all of their pasta sauces to make sure that it's got like the taste that they want. Not too salty, not too sweet, whatever. So pretty much every product is fabulous. And if you buy something and you don't like it, no questions asked. If I didn't like those pecan pies, I could take them back, even after I've eaten some of them. Because they want you to try new stuff. And how are you going to try something that you're not familiar with? They have all kinds of international foods. I'm sure they have Danish things and certainly German things. Like they probably have some kind of like bratwurst or something. So anyway, that's not knitting related, but it is holiday, so I want it to be festive. Speaking of holiday and parties, on the other side of this wall, I have a lovely young neighbor, a lovely young man. Very quiet, almost never see him. He put a note on the door of everybody on the hall a couple days ago saying, Saturday night, I'm having a holiday party and it's going to be noisy. I just wanted you to know. And he gave his phone number. If you wanted to complain, you could text him. And he said, please don't mind my friends singing. They're probably all going to be singing off key. Well, I could hear the people arriving, and at some point, it sounded like he had 100 people in there. It sounded like a discotheque. The music was pumping and like, the bass was beating, and around about midnight, they started to sing. They were singing along with a record I never heard before. I don't know if it was something from a Broadway show that I wasn't familiar with. I'll have to ask him. But it was a mob of people singing, and they all knew the lyrics, unless they passed out lyrics. I don't know. They were having a great time, and I was very disappointed that we weren't invited. I have to tell him if he ever does that again,
Mm.
I'm going to complain unless he invites us. Anyway, what is everybody else drinking?
I'm drinking port wine
Mm.
in a little vintage glass that I inherited from my grandmother. And I really like port wine. It goes well with cake as well. So that's one of my favorite this season, but also all year round.
I
So
want to
cheers.
Is it called port wine?
Mhm.
It's considered a
Yes,
wine or port?
it's a wine. It's like a sweet, yeah,
I have to
dark
do
red.
research
Yeah.
on. Good, I'm gonna look
So
into
yeah,
that.
We have
so
been to
it's really
Porto. We've been to Porto, Portugal, where port wine comes from. And they don't just make it in red, they also make a white color. And I think there's a blush as well. I zoomed in on you because I wanted
yeah,
to see the glass. It's so delicate and lovely.
yeah, yeah.
A
It's
couple of
really
years ago, I drank out of a vintage glass. I have a little Art Deco shot glass, and I'm not sure if it was that or what I was drinking. Like, I'm not sure if it had lead in the glass, but the next morning, I never told anybody this. The next morning, I woke up, both my eyes were like
swollen.
swollen, puffed out.
Mm.
I definitely had a reaction. Lucky for me, I live a few blocks away from one of the world's top eye infirmaries, New York Eye and Ear. So I just marched myself over there, and for weeks I was putting, if you ever have this problem, you boil an egg so it's hard boiled. It retains the heat for a long time. And I would put that on my eye instead of like a hot compress, which loses the heat right away. And I would just let it sit there and soak in. And eventually the swelling went down. Also, sleep with your head elevated. Those are the two tips that I
Spices.
learned from
Mm.
having swollen eyes. But your glass is beautiful, and I hope that
Yes, I have
make your eyes pop out.
ones that are a little bit smaller, and they are for snaps. I remember from Germany that's something that you drink as well, and it's something we drink here in Denmark at Christmas time. We drink snaps with Christmas parties, and so I have some of the glasses that are a little bit smaller for just a little um, bit of snaps because it's very strong, and you can spice it with different kind of spices. And people actually brew it at home, different types with walnuts or dill or something that would go well with shellfish or yeah, something that we put on the table for Christmas. So that's very popular here in Denmark.
Great. Interesting. I think in Germany, Jules, you would say schnapps, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know anyone who, well, no, I do have one colleague, he makes his own liqueurs. But schnapps, well, because you need to distill it. I mean, so I'm impressed that people make it themselves. That's more of
Like
a
130 proof, it'll like grow hair on your chest, right?
yeah, and
Yes, it's
I guess you
very
need to really
strong.
distill it. You can't just mix things in it. So yeah.
I think you can just buy the alcohol and then you can choose what kind of flavor you would like, and then you can make it at
Okay.
home. And it comes in beautiful glass bottles, and you can put that on the table, and it looks very festive. And yeah,
Oh, that's a nice idea. Yeah.
We tried one year with walnuts because we have a walnut tree at our cottage house, but it didn't turn out that well. It was a little too what do you say? The walnuts probably didn't dry out as long as they were supposed to. They were a little green, so it wasn't so sweet, and yeah. So I think it can be difficult to get the flavor you want, but it's a fun thing to try.
Jules, what are you drinking?
Oh, I'm very boring compared to that. I'm drinking sage tea, which is what people here drink when they're sick. I'm not sick, but I don't want to get sick, so maybe it's preventative. I don't know. In a nice little teacup. I guess this is from the 70s, which I bought with a whole set. This is my everyday china. I have a whole set of plates and teacups and little serving bowls and things with this pattern on it. Mm.
Okay, bottoms up.
And I'm cleaning up my life. So now I am dramatically cutting back on alcohol and on caffeine. So now I'm allowing my desperately needed coffee in the morning, and that's it. And I'm now drinking caffeine-free tea. So I'm just changing my life, and I'm not unhappy. Surprisingly,
I think with time we can all get acclimated to changes. What do they say? 21 days you can develop a new habit?
Well, I went a month with absolutely no caffeine and no alcohol. So now I'm not denying myself, but I am cutting back on the caffeine.
I went 9 months without caffeine or alcohol when I was pregnant.
Okay.
No alcohol because I wanted my baby to be healthy, but the caffeine part, I only drink 1 cup of coffee a day, but for some reason, the aroma of coffee made me sick to my stomach when I was pregnant. That was the only thing. My poor husband, he was accustomed to having me make the coffee every morning. He had to make it himself because I couldn't get anywhere near the coffee,
Interesting.
which was great because he learned how to do it.
So now he makes
Yeah.
you coffee every morning.
Oh, I make it because I'm up way before him, but I only still have 1 cup a day and it's enough. I don't drink it for the caffeine. I just drink it for the warmth and the lovely flavor of it.
Mm.
Okay, let's get to the knitting. So I want to share with you what I'm working on. I know, Jerry, you said you have like a problem.
Yeah.
This thing, well, for people who are watching, the 3 of you may not have followed my saga on this, but people watching will know that years ago, I think it's about 3 years ago, I started knitting this sweater called For the Rink or the Lynx. It's a 1930s, like a golfing kind of argyle sweater.
Yeah, I
It
saw
does have,
that.
it does have long sleeves. I knit the whole entire sweater using Fair Isle, like stranded. The fabric was beautiful. The inside was all perfectly stranded and gorgeous, as nice as the outside. There was only one little problem. When I went to put it on, I couldn't get it on. It had absolutely no give. It was like cardboard. I ripped the entire thing out in sections because as I ripped out, I re-knit, but I kept one little bit, like right here. This was the original stuff. So it's like double thick because of all the strands on the back. And I don't think you'd be able to see it, but it's got a thickness to it. This is like a very fine yarn. Fingering weight, but I think I was knitting on a size 2 needle, and with the stranding, it makes it more dense. So it was stiff. But you know, when you rip something out, it's really hard. I don't know if anybody's had this experience. I've had it more than once, unfortunately. It's hard to come back to and do it all over again. But this time I decided not to do it stranded, but to do it, I'm embarrassed to show you the inside, but to do it in tarsia, because then I wouldn't have all the double layering. But instead, I have 1 million ends to weave in.
Mm.
God.
So this
Horrible.
side, I started weaving in the ends. It took me, I would say, about 8 or 9 hours so far just to do like some
Oh.
of it.
God.
It'll probably be 20 hours of weaving in ends before all is said and done, maybe more, because I'll have to do the sleeves also. I just didn't know any way around that. But the good news is it gives a fabric that, let me show you the nicer side. It gives a fabric that has stretch in every direction. So now I don't have to worry about it not fitting. But I mean, I think it's gorgeous.
It is,
mean,
it's beautiful.
It is, it's great.
I mean, this motif, whoops.
And the colors are so bright, really pretty.
I'm just gonna get something that I'll use to show afterwards.
Billie, can you show us what you've got on right now? That looks so cool, your blue and white outfit.
I will in a second. I picked these colors because I bought a pair of shoes that are vintage reproductions that had brown, and then it had like a little like Scotch plaid kind of motif, and I picked up the colors from the plaid. So I thought, well, you know, they're unusual colors, but it really pops. I can't
It's
wait
beautiful.
for it to be done so I could wear it. What I'm wearing, okay, I just hung myself on the microphone, 1 second.
Mm.
Yeah, all the bobbins, you know, when you do intarsia. Okay, I'm released from that. This is one of my more recent finished objects, which I designed the sweater kind of loosely based on something that I saw, a Norwegian sweater that I just saw a picture of, and it had a turtleneck with stripes, and it had the striped cuffs, and it had this motif. And I figured out like a way to copy the motif, or at least I think I did a, you know, pretty real reproduction of it, and having this pattern all over. But the inside of this, I mean, I'll show you a little bit. The inside of this is, you know, it's a whole other situation. It's beautiful. So after having had the experience with For the Rink or the Lynx, this one I decided to, I did it stranded. I didn't see any way around that. I wouldn't have a million zillion bobbins. And this was only 2 colors. The other one is 3. But I knit it on a bigger needle, and I made sure to knit it very loosely. And I just kept checking for the little stretch factor. It's not wool, so it doesn't really have the stretch that wool has. It's cashmere, but it fits. I mean, that's the main thing, because knitting a whole sweater and then not having it fit. The measurements of that other one were okay. It's just that, you know, you expect your sweater to give a little bit when you put it over your head and over your shoulders. Anyway, yeah, so I wanted you to see this because it's my most recent wintry thing. And the pom-pom, I made the pom-pom, it's all cashmere. It's all cashmere. It was so much fun to just wrap and wrap and wrap. It's very thin, this yarn. I used 2 strands and it's still, I don't know if you can tell from there, probably not. It's thin, which is what
It's very lovely. Yes, I
Yeah.
love it. I love the ski look. I remember from seeing Rhinebeck, the show and tell program, where it was knitted all together, and you showed
had
us
needles
the
hanging out.
buttons that you wanted to put in, and yes, so and
I
all
bought these buttons, you know, I had it with
they,
me so I
they
could,
fit perfectly for they match
I-
really well.
I love them. If
Yeah.
anybody needs buttons and you can't get to the States, send me your order. I will shop. I won't be at Rhinebeck next year because it conflicts with the dates that I'm in Paris. But she is at Vogue Knitting Live, this vendor, which is in January 2025. So if anybody needs like super fabulous vintage buttons and they're having trouble finding them, reach out to me. Give me your shopping list and I'll go shop for you. And Jerry, I know you know this great button store. I want to go there with you because I've been unable to find buttons for another project that I'm working on. So I do want to go there.
We'll make a date and
Yeah,
and
let's do
go.
that.
Yeah, and my problem is something I had not expected. Let me just finish. What's our favorite line? I'm just finishing the row. So let me just finish the row, and it may be interesting to share. Okay, I'm just going to take me, and I don't do continental, so I use the throw, and so I'm much half speed to the way you girls knit. Okay, the row is finished. I don't know why I hadn't anticipated doing this. Okay. All right, this is, I'm going to see if I can easily find a picture of what this is going to be. If not, that's okay. No, I don't know where it is. Anyway, I'm making a long vest. And I found a sweater and I'm copying it in my colors, which are bright and colorful. This is a wonderful yarn, and it's all variegated, and it changes to colors to black. So Billie's familiar with my starting this. And this part, this is a left front, worked out beautifully. So it came time, I ran out of yarn, came time to order more yarn. So I ordered the variegated yarn, and I ripped it out, so I can't show it to you, but I started to knit it. I'm working on the right front vest, and the variegation, obviously these are hand dyed yarn, was completely, the colors were the same, but the variegation was completely different and totally ugly. As beautiful and nice as this is, the other was very black, and it was just hideous. And I said, this is obviously a new yarn, a new ball. And I thought, well, oh my God, what am I going to do? I still don't have the answer yet of what I'm going to do, but I had a small amount of the original balls, and I made up my little swatches, but I undid my swatches, and I'm going to use it to go as far as I can. So what I'm doing, I'm ordering another of this from a different, order it from Webs. I'm going to order one ball. They're out at the moment, but I'll wait for it to come in. And I'm going to knit it up. And if it's ugly, I'm going to take one of the good balls and I'm going to measure how much color, how many inches are color, how many inches are black. So I will use, this may be my only choice, and I think it will work if I have enough patience. So I will use the good balls as my guide, and I will make a graph of how much color, how much black, and I will use the bad ball if I have no choice, and I'll just cut. It'll be like cut and paste. I will do it to match what the real ball should look like.
I'm laughing because
Have you had that?
you were making fun of me that I had all these things hanging.
But I won't have anything hanging.
No, but you were like, oh, I would make it so simple. Well, you just described something so complicated that I wouldn't want to go anywhere near it. So you know what? To each his own. Everybody's got their own idiosyncrasies and things that they're willing to
It's
put up
kind of,
with.
when I
Yeah.
was faced with looking at this thing and realizing it was so totally ugly and there was just no way I was going to do it, I first got a hot flash thinking, what am I going to do now? And then I put my brain, calm my brain down, and I said, that's when That's when an experienced knitter comes into play to have, how do you correct an error? Which is how I met Billie. I was knitting this incredibly fabulous multicolored Fair Isle. Somehow I followed the pattern, but in the end it was something was dramatically wrong, and it ended coming here, and I had to fill in and Billie was there with me every stitch of the way, never figuring I'd ever be able to do it. And
A
with her,
little mathematics goes a long way.
and it came out quite fabulously. But there was a point, literally, where I thought I would cry. It was so I have another cry. We'll figure it out.
Well, with that, did you think about alternating the balls, good and bad, and then you'll get a mixture?
Alternating every row. I don't want to, frankly, I didn't think of that, but I'm not even sure that that would it might work, but the chances it would not. And I would have to put in, I could certainly try it, but I think for sure the way I'm thinking of doing it, I think has a better chance of working. So what would you alternate every 2 rows? It's,
Whatever you like. See how it looks.
I can try that. I will try that. I'm thinking as we're talking about, I will certainly try it. Um, it might work. My guess is first of all, it might work. But my feeling is if it doesn't work, even though it will look better, it will not look the same as the big piece. And there's so much of it. If it's really, I can't give that answer. It's well worth a try, Billie. Yeah, I'm not sure. Sometimes you just have to experiment. But I'm determined to make it work one way or another.
Before I move on to Jules and Julie, I wanted to mention that I got RSVPs from quite a few people, and people have interesting stories. Kati from Brazil is pregnant and with her first baby, so she didn't think she was going to be able to make it. And Sophie, who lives in the UK, but is, I think, originally from Germany, she has a new baby, I think about under a year, maybe, give or take. So she said she didn't know, it would depend on how her baby was behaving. The other Kati from Germany isn't feeling well, unfortunately. And, people have conflicts. Yulia does a Lindy Hop dance things on Sunday. So she, she definitely opted to go with her Lindy Hoppers. I can't say that I blame her. I think those are the main ones I wanted to mention to you. Yeah, because they've all been on before. Okay, Jules, what are you working on?
Well, I've got something that's more from your era. I know most of the show and tell fans are kind of more 30s and 40s fans. So this is, and it's interesting that you were talking about stranded versus intarsia, because this is a design that uses both to make the design, which I found very challenging because I'm very, very good at stranded work and I think normally good at intarsia, but both of them together, like stranding one color, stranding the background color across the whole thing, plus using little bobbins for the other wools, plus stranding some of those. So it hasn't been blocked yet. I hope it's going to work out when it gets blocked. It's a bit bunchy now. This is a lovely little jumper with parrots on it. So the rest of it is just green. I'm just finishing up the sleeves. It's almost done. And
You have 2 sets of DPNs going there, one in each sleeve?
right, because I'm making the sleeves at the same time. Well, because I had to adapt the pattern because it's written for a tension of 8 stitches to the inch, which I never get with any yarn ever, no matter how small the needles or no matter how thin the yarn, because I knit pretty loosely. So I used this yarn, which is a very nice yarn that I bought in Ireland. Really, you can't see it, but it's just a little bit tweedy, as you can see, and it's very, very soft. It's 100% wool. It's lamb's wool. It's just, you can wear it right on your skin. It's really, really nice. But I can't knit it up that tightly. And also the pattern is written, of course, for somebody who's a lot smaller than I am. So I had to kind of fudge everything to make it work. And then I also I knit it in the round instead of knitting it in pieces, because most of it, of course, is very boring to knit. There's nothing on the back side. And then I started working on the top part of it, but I forgot to see that you actually have to start the parrots a little lower down. You're supposed to start the parrots before you make the underarm separation. So they started a bit too high, and so they're still too high, and so the neck got even higher. And then I forgot to make, there's supposed to be an opening in the back to make it easier to close, which I forgot to put in. But it doesn't matter, it fits over my head, it's fine. And I just need to get the sleeves. I made the sleeves then from the top down, just picking up around the armholes. So I did both of the sleeves at the same time, and I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough wool because I only had 300 grams of wool. And it turns out this wool is amazingly efficient. I'm going to have at least 50 grams just left over, even with long sleeves, so I can make a hat or something to go with it. So yeah, so I'm working my way through the pattern, but it's very, I mean, I'm quite embarrassed to show you the backside, because at some point I just started tying knots because there were just too many ends. I couldn't weave them in anywhere because you have so many colors in one, just in one little space, that that was very hard to get them all, you know, tied in somewhere. And the red that I started with is it's a bit too thick, so that's kind of bunchy. It's got sort of relief. It's the 3D birds. I hope they're a little less 3D once it gets blocked, but the rest of it is all Shetland wool, so it should flatten out nicely when it's blocked. We'll see.
You said something very interesting, that the wool is very efficient, and it made me wonder, I'm sure there's an answer to this, but I don't know, maybe one of you know. A knit stitch versus a purl stitch, one of them may use slightly more yarn. And if the purl stitch is the one that uses more, then knitting in the round where you're only knitting and you never have to purl back could net you more square inches per yarn.
That could be. I know there are a lot of people get a different tension when they knit back and forth or when they knit in the round. A lot of people get much tighter when they knit in the round. I actually knit looser when I knit in the round because I think my purl stitches have more tension than my knit stitches, so that makes it difficult to find out. But that's interesting. That might be true. I've never worked with this yarn before. I just bought it because I saw it in a store in Ireland. I thought it was beautiful wool. I just bought some of it. I said, oh, okay, it's very lightweight. 300 grams is enough for something with long sleeves. And then I found this pattern, which is written for exactly this color. It's perfect. I mean, it matches it perfectly.
I've seen this sweater. I've seen other people knit it in those colors. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it from the website of Bex, from Subversive Femme, from Bex's website.
Yes, I'm familiar with the sweater as well, the parrots. I think it's a common one that shows up on Instagram regularly.
Yeah, because it's actually,
one,
apart from the parrots, it's very easy to knit, and it looks so great. I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, it's
Definitely.
screams vintage. So for the person who wants to
Yes.
knit something very, very vintagey looking without it being this or my other thing, it's a really good look. And like you say, a lot of it is just knitting if you're going to do it in the round, and you don't have to seam anything. Yeah, for that beginner knitter who doesn't want to deal with all the other crazy thing, buttons and stripes and bobbins and pointed needles, whatever.
And it has a chart. I mean, a lot of earlier vintage patterns. This just, I mean, imagine. I mean, it's written out, like all the parrots are written out in like knit this and then knit 3 and then knit 3 blue and knit. But there's also a chart, which makes it easier also for modern knitters, I think. Yeah.
I love the green sweater that you're wearing. I love that square neck and the sort of
thank you.
weave.
This is from 1966. I made this year because this is the blog year 1966. So it's a very 60s design. It's a sort of a loose t-shirt kind of loose. Yeah. But yeah, I really like this. I really like this yarn too, and this very simple basket weave pattern, which gives you a nice little texture.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. Okay, let me unpin you. I don't know if that comes out full-size screen for people watching, but Julie, tell us about what you're knitting. You're so busy there.
Yes, I love to knit for the season. I love to knit Christmas. So I wanted to knit this one for a long time. I like that it has the little skirt here. It's very feminine. And it's also knitted in rounds here with the hearts are. So, but I wanted to do a test because the pattern says German short rows, and I wasn't too experienced in doing that. And it also said how to do, let me see, conventional cast on, and that was new to me also. So I just wanted to do something with yarn that I had in my stash and see how the tension was and how it turned out. So I'm excited to see if it's getting a little too tight. But here's the neck. And then I'm supposed to divide it into front and back and then do the sleeves afterwards. So yeah.
It looks lovely. Love those little hearts. The picture that you showed, did it have hearts? It looked like some different motif.
Yeah, it is like in three
Oh, but
different sizes.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
so it's
different colors.
The Grinch look. So I bought merino wool yarn in a green color for it, but now I just wanted to do this test one and then see how it turned out and just have a little fun with it, um and then I can use the wool that I spent more money on. Then I can do another one if it turns out well, or just adjust where I need to adjust it. Um, Sometimes I like to do things several times if something works out, or just learn by my mistakes and then try to correct it in another piece, or make it another size, or whatever needs to be corrected. And yeah, and learn from that. Also by
Lucky you.
using different techniques.
I don't seem to learn from my mistakes. I end up having to rip the original out and redo it. What you're wearing is really fabulous.
This one I did several years ago. It's actually a Tyrol sweater, Susan Crawford. So the original one was green with purple and pink flowers on, but I wanted to make a winter version. So I made the flowers look more like snowflakes, and I added some silver, very lightweight yarn or thread into it, so it has a little silver shine to it, so it looks a lot more like snowflakes. And then I had these glass buttons. So and then I made the puff sleeves a little more puffy.
I
So
didn't know that Susan Crawford did that pattern because
yeah.
I'm knitting that sweater with the colored flowers, the Tyrolean
Mhm.
one. And mine is black, but this is like such a nice twist on it that you did, and especially with the silver. It's a little hard to tell on the screen, but I could definitely see that
Yeah.
it wasn't just white on, is it navy or black?
It's navy.
Mhm.
Yes. But I also did, that was actually one of my first sweaters that I knitted, was the Susan Crawford in the original green color with the green leaves and flowers in purple and pink. And I had a really hard time sitting there with the chart because it was new to me. So that's also why I was inspired to do another version of it. And then I could see that it advanced since the first time that I tried to, yeah, do this
That's
sweater.
so clever. And this motif, you found it somewhere else or you made it up?
This one I used Susan Crawford's book, A Stitch in Time, I think it is.
The snowflake is in her book?
Yeah, it is, but it's actually the flower. It's only because I changed the color that it looks a lot more like snowflakes. So it is actually the kind of German elf flower, the troll look.
Oh, so then
Yes.
the one I'm knitting is not that. No, the one I'm knitting is like a more stylized flower, not snowflakey looking, but same concept. It's going up both sides and it's a cardigan and it has a lot of buttons down the front. And yeah, that is up next after I finish a few other things. It's mostly done, but I'm doing something strange on the back because the back was just a solid color on the one
Mm.
that I'm knitting. And I wanted to do something more creative on the back than just solid black. But I'm not sure that it's working out the way I imagined. So I might end up ripping it out and just doing the back solid. It'll be more versatile, but I'll see. I haven't decided yet which way I'm going.
I
What
just
else?
ripped out. Could I
Anything
could I
say?
just show some vintage buttons I bought with no purpose for them?
Yes, love to see
They're in the
that.
other room. We'll just pull it right out.
Oh, yay, a comment from someone. Nancy McConnell said, very talented and stylish group of women. Well, don't assume. We have somebody whose pronouns they. But
Well, lovely compliment in any case.
thank you. Yes, it is Nancy McConnell. Thank you. And talented will take. Stylish will take. All of us. Well, thank you for commenting. I went through so much to get up on my screen the comments section because it's in a different place from everything else. And I can't tell you how many times I've tried to do this in the past and I have failed. But this year I was really determined. So yay. I hope more people comment. So it's fun to see them pop in and be able to read them.
So here, I just saw them online. Silly, expensive, but it was so adorable. I figured, so what? So let's see if I can. It's like a fruit bowl,
Mm.
Or like a fruit tart,
a fruit tart,
like
exactly right.
pastry crust around the edge.
Yes, exactly right. So I have no idea how I'll use them. And another button, I don't think it's vintage. I have a feeling it's Swarovski crystal, but we have a famous trimming store in New York, M&J, that has
It's closing.
closing. So I went in to just see if there was something I would buy just as a parting thing. And I did find this button that I locked it up so that I don't even know how I'll open it. Okay, they're diamond buttons, but I thought that I'm big on squares. What can I say? And
Here's
it's
my China squares.
okay. So I don't know how to work it with the screen to show it to you, but it's all like baguettes in the square. And
Okay.
at some point, if I live long enough, we'll get to making it. It doesn't matter. I love to look at them. So we'll pack it up again. I have a friend who I'm not involved with vintage, but a friend of mine is that if she were to choose one place to introduce herself to a group or a club or something, is there one site, Billie?
For buttons?
No, for her knitting, but vintage. I mean, you belong to a lot of places in the city or online?
For vintage knitting?
Yeah?
No.
Oh, I thought there might be a club or something.
Not that I know of. That's why I started my channel, because I
Oh,
wanted to attract vintage knitters. It's a very niche
yeah,
group.
but
It's
she's part of that.
super niche. I know that there are people who are interested in vintage clothing in general. I don't
Yeah.
know about clubs, but you know, there is the Art Deco Society. There's also the Victorian, I don't know if it's Victorian Society, but you know, New York has all these organizations. I have not found an in-person vintage knitting group.
She's
Um,
interested, she'll find it.
I like to think that I'm as close as you get to that, you know, on the internet. I don't know. Julie, in your country, do they have an in-person group of vintage knitters that you know of?
No, not that I know of. There's a few
Jules?
people that I am in contact with through Instagram. One other very devoted vintage knitter in Denmark that I know of. Um, but a lot of people are into vintage clothing, and once in a while they might knit something that goes with it. But or they buy knitwear, vintage knitwear if they can find it on eBay. But I'm not a member of any group. And this is the center of Denmark, so this is where you should be able to meet people that have that interest, I would think. Um, but yeah, no, not unfortunately. And then there's another person that lives further away that I see once in a while and we knit together, but she's not a member of any group either, so I don't think it's possible. And there's a lot of knitting groups, but then when you start showing your interest for vintage, they sometimes they really don't get it.
Mhm.
And you can feel left out because you're not into the latest knitting designers and yeah, the latest trends.
Exactly, exactly. Jerry, just turn her on to Show and Tell, the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, because that's where she's gonna find people who are doing what she's interested in, and then she might network with other
Oh,
people. And definitely Instagram, there are a lot of vintage knitters there, but there's no way of organizing on
And
Instagram a group of Instagrammers. I mean, I
the
have,
ones that I have been following, they live in very different places, like Germany, Sweden, England, the United States, so many different places. So, and I feel like I know them because I've been following them for years, and it's so interesting to see what they are working on, and it inspires me a lot.
a
So
lot of
that's
people in Australia also, it's very popular there, wearing vintage, so naturally there's sprung up. I mean, there's already like a big knitting community because they have sheep and they make wool in Australia. So there's a lot of vintage knitters in Australia. The problem for us is our time difference between New York and Sydney or Melbourne is so great that a convenient time for us here is like the middle of the night. They're still sleeping. I interviewed, well, there's one person who I can think of right away, Hannah Nelthorpe, who would love to be here, but it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning for her. She went out of her way to, work out a time with me when I interviewed her. And it's a lovely interview if you want to see, the Australian perspective. And she politely wrote that she couldn't be here today. And, it's largely because of the time. Also, I've done some knit-alongs, which I wanted to show you all what my next knit-along is going to be. And I had a woman who belongs to, I've met her in person in some of these Art Deco Society events that I've gone to internationally. She joined my knit along, but yeah, it was really like at a crazy time for her. Let me show you a picture of my next knit along in case people are watching and are now intrigued by vintage. Let me figure out how to do this. Okay, I need to go share screen. I'm sorry, I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
Oh,
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 Can you see it?
yeah, that's cute.
Fabulous.
So this is called Knit It for Skiing. And in the show notes for this episode, I will put a link where you can go and register. My yarn in the background here is, these are my colors. I'm not doing green. It seems like a lot of you are doing green, but I've done enough green and blue for a while. So here's my three colors for this. And I don't know if you know what sock monkeys are, but this just reminds me of a sock monkey. So I thought I would try and replicate little sock monkey colors. Sort of. In an episode coming soon, I'm in the process of editing it. I'm going to show the holiday market that's in my neighborhood, and there's a whole booth where everything's sock monkey. He's got like sweatsuits and actual sock monkey dolls and all kinds of things with a sock monkey to it. It's really fun. Why am I showing up like this?
Yes, but perhaps I can show you the latest 1940s hat that I knitted that I'm quite pleased with in boucle yarn. And I actually did this hat twice before for one in yellow for a summer outfit and another one in red, and it has a bow. And so this is the strap that goes behind the head. So I think you perhaps know the style from the 1940s. And then I did little bubbles.
Often with the snood hanging down the back.
Yes, exactly. So I'll try it on. It was really easy to do. And then I think I'm going to do a couple of mittens in the same white boucle yarn that goes to match it.
Very cute.
That's so
Very cute.
Are you dressed vintage all the time?
No, I'm not. I work as a nurse, so at my job I wear a uniform. And then I have three children, so I have to dress very practically. But every occasion that I get, yesterday we went to a Christmas market, and then I got to wear my vintage coat and this hat that used to belong to my grandmother. So every occasion that I have, I love to dress up. And we do actually in Copenhagen have a lot of vintage events that we can join into, the treat ride, as we spoke of at my interview. And then there is a group of people, it's mostly the same, that shows up for these types of events. And then they meet once a month. They meet at a cocktail bar called the Flatiron. It's a Art Deco cocktail bar. So you can meet up there and have a cocktail and just chat about vintage and dress nicely. So
I'm laughing because the Flatiron Building is walking distance from where Jerry and I live. And it is kind of an Art Deco-y. It's like the
yes,
original skyscraper. It's about a 10-story building, which by today's standards isn't tall, but in the era when it was built,
back
it was
then.
a big, tall building. So yeah, we love our Flatiron. It's landmarked. It can't ever go away.
Yes.
So
So
Jules,
when I have the opportunity, I dress vintage.
It's almost like the swing dancers when they all get together in their outfits, and I'm sure they have monthly dances, if not more often than that.
I would wear vintage all the time if I could find the clothing, and the shoes are really the hard part.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to wear a contemporary shoe if you're all dressed vintage. It just looks like a
Well,
hot
maybe
mess.
maybe one time as a treat for yourself, you'll go to a custom shoemaker.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
One time expense, but that would give you pleasure every time you wear them.
Well, I did buy those brown shoes that are a vintage reproduction, and they're made by a woman who does only vintage reproduction. So
Oh, so
everything,
that's okay.
yeah, except that nothing's comfortable on me. And I
Hmm.
do a lot of walking, like I walk everywhere. And if you want to dance, your shoe has to be comfortable enough to stand the whole night and be dancing in. And I just find that hard to achieve, but maybe someday there'll be something I can put in the shoe, no matter what kind of shoe, that makes it heavenly to step on. I just want to say there's another comment, Jules. I don't know how to pronounce this person's name. Anila says, very nice sweater, Jules, and did like a bunch of
I
hands
think
up.
I'm trying it on, see if the
Yeah.
sleeve is long enough. It's
There's a
not quite long enough.
flag.
It's a bit, the sleeve is a bit narrow. I'm wondering if I should actually just rip it back and do fewer decreases, because sleeves always tend to get longer and narrower with use and with washing. So I have to think about
Did you
what to do.
wash, did you wash your swatch to know how your yarn behaves?
Yes, but I like, you make a little swatch like this and it's different from a sleeve, which is like a tube, and you never really know how things
Yeah,
work
yeah,
out. But
yeah.
it's just my experience especially with things knitted in sort of more lightweight yarn, that the sleeves just definitely tend to get longer and thinner, just with gravity and with time. So I have to think about this. So, but I can't knit on it until I put my other sweater back on. So I'll be back in
Oh.
just a second.
But the shoulders looks really good.
Yeah, that turned out fine. And
They fit you perfectly.
yeah, thank you. And I can get it over my head, even though I forgot to put it in the back opening. So that will be fine. Oh, now it's caught on my necklace. All right, I'm still here. I just
Yeah.
This person put a little flag, and I'm just not sure if this flag is Norway, Sweden, I don't know, a blue flag with a yellow cross.
That's a crush. That's Swedish.
I
So
guess.
the Nordic countries, Finland, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden have almost the same flag, but different colors. So we have the red background and the white cross in the middle. And in Sweden is the blue background with the yellow. In Finland is the white with the blue. And in Norway is the red with the blue crossing.
So there you go. Learn something.
Yes.
I guess that it was Scandinavian, and I thought maybe Sweden. Yeah, but I didn't know all the others have the same motif. Wow. I love these little comments. I wish more people would comment. Oh, well. So anything else that people want to share? Because we've been yapping for more than an hour.
I would like to share that I yesterday when I went to a Christmas market, I brought my muff, and I really love the look of it. So now I'm looking for knitted patterns where you knit a muff. And I found one on Etsy where it's a cape and it's a hat with a snoot and it's a muff. So that one I think I will download and then try to knit one. But I'm a little I'm wondering how the knitting will react and um, actually how thick it will become, and if you knit a part of it outside and perhaps you turn it around and then you have an inside. Is anyone else familiar with knitting a muff? I was wondering.
But I would think that you either want to have lining or, like you say, double thickness. There's a hat that people have been knitting, a contemporary designer, is it the Musselburgh hat? Where I think they knit a tube and then they knit back. So it's one inside the other. Actually, this is like totally double thickness. So, you know, if I just continued knitting this, I would have had two complete layers. Yeah, but I've had muffs. I had one when I was a little girl, and then I recently had two that belonged to my mother that were fur, and I sold them both because I thought I might not ever wear them. Now I'm sorry that I did. They were large, like a little one, like what you showed. That would be
Yeah.
practical. I don't know. I just find like in New York, I always have stuff that I'm carrying because I'm walking. Like the rest of the world, I think they have their car, they put stuff in the trunk or the boot of the car and off they go. Me, I have it on my person. So I'm always carrying a lot of stuff. I wouldn't be able to do that if my hands were in a muff.
No.
So it's not going to be so practical for me, I guess.
I have a picture of it, if you can see.
Oh, look how dark.
Yes.
Oh, it's a
And
great
it's
set.
really,
I
it's
think
very beautiful. So,
The muffs
that's
that
my
I
goal
had-
for 25.
The muffs that I had a zipper and a little compartment inside. So if you wanted to have your phone or lips
Yes.
or your key.
This one has one too, has a little
Yeah.
zipper here.
cute.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting to see, Julie. I'll have to
Mm.
keep an eye out for that when you start that. Okay, well, it seems like we are maybe out of stuff to share. I think there's one other thing. Oh yeah, since I was last here a year ago, I started teaching, and I'm teaching young children between ages of 7 and 10. I'm teaching adults too, but the little ones are really interesting to see like how they struggle with I'm teaching them all to throw. No continental yet. First, just English style throwing. But at some point you have to be holding both the needles in your left hand if you're gonna put your right hand on the yarn. Some of them they grasp that without me even telling them. It's just like, well, I know I got to hold on to these. So that's kind of interesting to see how the mind works and makes the adjustments automatically. And it becomes like a natural movement for them pretty quickly. I would say like in an hour, I can pretty much teach them the basic maneuvers. And then it's just a matter of practicing. So I'm finding this extremely rewarding when they get it, when it like snaps in. It's like, I did that. Like I made that happen. It's really fun. And actually the same thing with adults, because I'm teaching adults as well. And some of them have just as much trouble as little kids, sometimes even more, because the adults are conditioned to thinking like they're not going to be able to do it. Like they already have some preconceived notions. And like anything, like learning a second language or whatever, it's harder to learn when you're older.
When you're older, yes, it takes a longer time. I learned a little bit to knit with my grandmother when I was about 10, I think, and a little bit in school, but then I didn't knit for my 20s. So in the beginning of my 30s, I picked it up. And then I think because I already had it in my hands before when I was a child, it was a lot easier for me to get a hang of it.
Right, there's
And
muscle memory.
yes,
I mean, I've talked about that on my channel from time to time. I learned when I was 4.5. I still have the celluloid needles that my mother taught me on. They're not here behind me. They're not handy. Otherwise, I would show them to you. But it's in one of my first couple of episodes. I showed them. But then I didn't knit for quite a while. I've had 2 long hiatuses from knitting. But at one point I had about a 20, I'm going to say 25-year span where I didn't knit. And I was afraid when I went into a yarn shop to say, I want to knit something and I'm not sure if I'm going to remember how. I was really amazed at how it came right back. I held the 2 needles in my hand, I held the yarn, and the long tail cast on. It took me a moment to think about it, and then there it was. It came right back.
yeah,
And as I started to knit, I would say within less than 5 minutes of knitting back and forth, I felt like I was at the speed that I had always knit at. I think it's like driving a car. Once you know how, even if you don't drive all the time, which in New York, we gave up our car a long time ago. So I've been driving for over 50 years, but I don't drive that often. And still, every time I get behind the wheel of a car, I know how to drive. I don't have to like think about it. It's automatic. So I'm not at all surprised that it would come back to you to some extent from childhood. If you did it enough for it to really click in,
yeah.
then yeah. Okay. Happy holidays, everybody. I'll see
Yes,
you.
happy holidays.
I'll see you between now and next year, but not in this venue. I think this is once a year is enough, and hopefully next year some people will feel like they missed out by not being here and they'll want to join back in. So thank you all for being here and sharing knitting and stories. And I wish you all a great end of the year and 2025.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Billie. Thank you so much for having us here. Really nice to meet the 2 of you, Jerry and Julie.
Nice to meet you too.
I feel
Yeah,
out
thank
of
you for
place.
having me.
I feel out of place. I don't have a name that begins with J.
Yeah.
Mary, Jules, Julie, and me. Bye. Thanks for
Bye.
Bye. Happy holidays.